All right, so welcome back to another video. It is 10:23 p.m., so not too late on a Friday night. Now, this video is going to be a little bit interesting. And the reason why is because of the following. Sometimes if you have an instinct, it's probably right. If you haven't corrupted your soul, your being, it's probably right. Or if you're on the right path. Now, this is a whole philosophical conversation that I'm not going to get into right now, but I will say this, that if you have a sense that something is off or something is wrong or you should make a decision, and it's not impulse, right? You don't just kind of act immediately, but you could sense it, you could feel it. You may be wrong, right? And there are some instances where you are wrong, and there are people who follow their gut or their instincts and they end up being wrong, and there are other people who follow them and they end up being right. Now, again, I think a lot of that has to do with how you live your life and how aligned you are with your true self and how authentic you are to who you actually are and how integral of a human being you are. And I think part of that comes down to the path that you're pursuing. So you're not going to be perfect, but obviously you want to make sure that you're doing the right things. You live a good life. You're developing character traits that are actually admirable. So you keep your word. You're honest. You're trustworthy. You're confident. You're generous. I think compassion is a big one. Care. Uh, true concern for the well-being of yourself and for other people through action, right? Not just like mental masturbation, you're telling yourself this and that and this is what you actually believe, but truthfully you're not actually behaving in that way. So that's actually not who you think you are is not who you actually are, right? In other words. So back to sales. Remember what I was saying yesterday about the dude? Well, that dude, I was actually right. So we got to the point where our rapport was so strong, was so good that he kind of got spooked about the whole process, make the whole process specifically around making a large lump sum payment before he would see a return on that investment. Now, I realized that at the time I picked something up that was incongruent that I didn't call out. And this is something that I learned today, actually, which is that if you sense something, some kind of awkwardness or incongruence, call it out. If you sense it, like, listen, I could tell that you're a little bit uncomfortable. It's like, oh, I just noticed you cross your arms there. I mean, is this something I said or how are you feeling? Listen, I'm pretty tired. My brain is not working. I haven't been sleeping properly the last few days, but you get my drift, right? You're calling it out in a playful way, the way you would call out your bro or your sis or your friend or whatever the case is. Simultaneously being authentic, right? That's another whole conversation. But when you're doing a sales call, sales meeting, when you're in sales, when you're out in your life and whatever, but especially in sales, you could fall into the trap of trying to play a professional, trying to play a consultant, play a salesperson, right? Which means that you're not being yourself, but you're also trying to be yourself through not being yourself, which means like you're putting on this mask, but you're still trying to be yourself. So don't try to be yourself, just be yourself, right? Just be who you are. And that's really what people resonate with, not just your prospects, because they can sense it. You can sense it. How can they not sense it? We're human beings, right? That's what we are. We're sensory creatures. Don't forget that. So, and think about it like this: the reason your friends and your family love you, the reason people care about you is because of the person you are, not the person that you're pretending to be. Right? Now, obviously, you'll have friends, you'll have different interests with different friends, and you might talk about different things and you might resonate on different levels, but it's all you. You're not faking it. You're still being you. And so a big part of that is just relax, right? the first thing that you want to do when you speak to a prospect is make them feel like that you're on the same team, right? You're on the same side of the table, that you're not opposed to them. You're not trying to sell them something, that you're trying to help them solve a problem, but in an authentic way, as far as like the way you would help your bro solve a problem, right? Or maybe one of your girls, if you're a girl, maybe you have multiple girlfriends, but the point is that if you're calling up your friend on the phone and he's like, oh, this and that and the other, and you're like, okay, what's going on? Like, let's talk about it. So what happened here? Uh-huh. And then what'd you do there? Oh, okay. So what happened with this situation? So did you think about doing this? So it's like you're trying to help them solve a problem. Because here's the thing, is that if they're a good fit, then the rest will be not a piece of cake, but it'll be a lot easier than if you were to try to like manage the conversation and communicate your points in such a way where you're being somebody else, right? You're being the salesperson, like you're putting on your hat, your salesperson hat. And what can happen oftentimes is that you'll notice that your own personality will creep into the sales calls, sales meetings, and you temper that, right? You temper that, you kind of scale it back. That's actually the wrong approach in most cases, in basically every case. The reason why is because you think that who you are, who you're being, is not who you're supposed to be in this particular case. But you have no other alternative. The only other alternative is for you to pretend to be someone that you're not through your behavior or through the way you say things or your expressions or the words that you use. Listen, you can still be professional. You can still use professional language and still come up like say whatever joke, something comes to your head, say it, right? Your mannerisms, the way you behave. You can't lose sight of the fact that just because you have a job, it doesn't mean that you have to be somebody else, right? You're inhabiting a different personality to perform that role. Oftentimes, the reason people hired you, this may not be the case if you were kind of like a phony on your interviews or you're a phony on your videos or whatever the case is, and you're putting on a front. Like you'll see a lot of people that are like too controlled, and you can tell how they're behaving. It's fucking irritating. Like I fucking hate it. They like you for you, right? Especially if you kind of like I'm telling you, with the companies, the people that I work with, they're like they tell me when we talk about specifically about qualities um, and reasons reasons for kind of being on the same mission. It was all about alignment. It was all about personality and character. That's what it was about. And I didn't pretend to be somebody that I wasn't on these interviews, right? I never did. And obviously I'm doing my own thing as well. So, I have a couple of things on the side, but so I take that back. I have a couple of things on the forefront. Actually, I have one. So I'm basically a closer, right? So if you guys don't know what that is, watch previous videos. But a closer is basically the individual that how should I explain this? The salesperson that ultimately makes the sale, right? There are some people kind of in the background, whether it's marketing, whether it's people who are making appointments, but the person who ultimately makes the sale and collects the money is the closer, right? Now you can perform both roles. You can perform multiple roles, but if you close deals or a negotiator, whatever you want to call it, right? Now I'm not a CEO, right? I'm not a president. I don't have my own company. I'm doing these videos, but I work for other companies, two of them. um, and clearly, I'm working on like developing my own sales training program. That's what I'm doing, partially through these videos, partially through I'm going to start a school channel as well. And I've been developing my system for quite a long period of time. And there's going to be more and more and more and more coming out, especially like in more structured, in a course type manner, where things are kind of like more structured and laid out as far as categories and topics and sequences and lessons and if A then B and Q&As and stuff like that. There's going to be like a whole thing there, but that's in the process of development. And like I said, this is kind of part of the whole process. So basically, that's what I'm doing. I'm mainly a closer for two companies currently. They're multiple eight-figure companies per year, and I'm doing pretty well. I don't want to say exact numbers, but it's in the. I'm going to sound like I'm bragging. Am I bragging? I don't think I'm bragging. But anyway, the point is that I'm a closer for two companies, and they're two different offers in two different industries, right? This is the key. It's not like I'm doing the same thing for no. It's two different companies, two different industries, different offers. Um, the price point for one of them, the contract value is around initial price point is around like maybe 8K, somewhere around there. Contract value on average is around 30K or so. The other one is between 10K and 18K, and obviously commission on those sales. One of them is they're two call close, like I mentioned before, with the contract involved, questions and answers, and the other one is basically a one call close, and there's a lot more friction there because they don't pass through multiple people to finally get to you, right? Because in the first offer, I'm doing college consulting. So basically, I'm a closer. They have a different title because they're not going to say, closer on the screen when they actually meet you. But effectively, I close families who want to sign up their kids to help them get into, really good schools in the United States primarily. So they're aiming typically to get their kids into like Ivy schools or, a top 25 school or something like that. So I'm a closer for that particular offer. And that requires a lot of course, industry specific knowledge, service specific knowledge. You need to know a lot about the actual industry itself and the whole process of college consulting, which is very interesting. And also being able to work with students, work with kids as young as, we have like third graders as old as 12th graders. So I'm speaking to parents, I'm speaking to mothers and fathers and kids as well. So I'm pretty good on that front. And the other offer is medical technology. It's stem cells. So and that's pretty interesting because I have a background in business. I have a background a little bit in neuroscience. I haven't. I didn't. I completed my associate's degree in business. This was a long time ago. I'm 35 right now. Um, and then I went back to school. I studied neuroscience when I was in my 20s. I didn't finish that degree. I ended up pursuing music for a period of time, which is pretty interesting. That's a different life, different conversation. So, I was producing music. Nothing really happened there, but it was quite a journey. So, and then in between, there's a lot that's been going on, and I have a previous life outside of sales. But but my background as it relates to those two specific jobs would be, well, I don't like, I felt I was aligned with that particular offer with the kids because I wish that I had something like that when I was growing up. Because my parents were immigrants coming to this country. I'm in Canada, by the way, Canadian, um, Greek Canadian, and so they came to this country, and I wish when I was growing up, because I didn't know what to do, that this was around or available, and that would have been great because that would like save me a lot of time and a lot of energy, a lot of money to actually know what I wanted to do. So I felt very aligned with that. And plus, I've always had an affinity for like coaching others, and I've always been looking for like older mentors, specifically like male mentors, as far as like martial arts teachers, coaches, stuff like that. And so I was very aligned with that one, and also medical technology. That's a big one. I studied neuroscience in school. The reason I did that actually is because my grandmother had Alzheimer's, and I saw her state, and I saw her gradually degenerate over a period of multiple years, and it was definitely one of the saddest things I've ever seen, and that really hit me to my core. And that was very interesting. And I've always been interested, of course, in like fitness and optimizing my nutrition and supplementation and stuff like that. So medical technology was the logical next step. And I've been thinking about stem cells for a while, for a period of maybe 5 or 10 years. I can't really say, but it came along, and it was kind of like an arduous process. But of course, I'm educating myself. I'm involved in like multiple different sales training programs. So just educating myself at the highest level, and my ascent in this space has been relatively fast, and I think I just had an affinity for it. I'm just generally, it's part of my personality, so it's not really that, it's not really that, it's not really that big of an effort. It's not. I'm pushing myself. I'm outside my comfort zone, but it's more of like aligned with, partially aligned with what I can do, which is like I like interpersonal relationships, right? That sales, again, it's a bit tricky, right? But interpersonal relationships, so like person to person, like groups, stuff like that. I like that entire thing. I'm a bit more extroverted than introverted. I am a little bit introverted sometimes, depending on where I am, but a bit more extroverted. So this was kind of like perfectly aligned. In addition, with my interests as well, as I mentioned, with the college consulting offer and the medical technology, the stem cell offer as well. That's a long-winded way of saying that I'm a closer for for two companies, um, and there are, like I said, multiple eight-figure companies currently, and I think they're on their way to actually becoming nine figures. I know the first one, they're on their way, but the doing pretty well, very well actually, and been around for a while in the industry as well. So that all being said, my experience, what I was saying before, is different. There are different categories, right? So in one case, it's like one called close, which is the stem cell offer. They see an ad, they talk to a setter, and they come to me, right? So guards are a little bit higher. They're struggling with different issues, and it's more of like a solution-oriented approach where you can see a specific tangible ROI. With college consulting, it's a little bit different because you have to frame the ROI differently. So I'm familiar with different spaces, different types of offers, different price points, and different prospects, different types of prospects. Men, women, parents, kids, um, and so yeah, there's other stuff in the background as well, as far as like in the past, not in the background, but in the past, in the background insofar as what I mentioned before. But the point I was trying to get at, this was like a super long side tangent, but the entire point that I was trying to get at was, um, to actually to be yourself. Like the more yourself you are, you might think that you're putting off the prospects, but like this is the thing, is that you're being yourself. Then the observer comes out, and then it kind of judges you for being yourself insofar as it thinks, or maybe you think, or whatever part of you thinks, that you need to like act more professionally or whatever the case is. Now you could tell on this video that I'm not necessarily acting professionally. I don't behave the exact same way because right now I'm talking to you, but there's no feedback, right? I'm not waiting for you to say something, so I can just say a bunch of stuff. So it's a little bit different. And obviously, when I'm explaining things, again, it's a little bit different versus when I'm asking questions, and it's the dynamic is different. So you can't really get a good sense of how I actually perform when I'm doing these videos. But I'm pretty comfortable, right? So the biggest thing is, whoever you are, that's why you are where you are now, right? It's because of you, unless you've been faking it the whole time, in which case you got some deep digging, right? But if you are, who you are with your family, with your friends, bring that person to your people, bring that person to your prospects, bring that person to your clients, right? Bring that person there, because they love you, especially if you're like not a likable person. I don't, maybe that's the wrong personality, but you are likable, right? If you just are who you are, you're likable, right? As long as you're not a piece of shit and selfish, right? And if you're being a piece of shit, then it's not like you are one, but if you're being one, then you could probably know. Like if you're irritable, like intentionally angry, off-putting, you're annoyed, like if you're behaving in ways that are totally within your control, that are intentionally negative, well then yeah, nobody's gonna like you. Why would they? Do you even like you? Do you even like yourself? Probably not. You might say that you do, but secretly you may not. So, man, what am I even saying right now? It's 10:42. What's the point of this? I was trying to make a point here. Yeah, be yourself. That was the main point. And yes, the dude, right? So the dude that I was talking to, who I lost the deal. Basically, what had happened was I spooked him a bit because our rapport was so strong. It was so good. He was on board. He was there. We schedule the appointment, we schedule the other appointment, everything was all set up. But then when it came time to collect payment, I was a bit stiff, you know. I was a bit like that. The way I delivered it was kind of like I was expecting, it was like the anticipation of like the payment, right? Sometimes you're anticipating it, you want it too much. Now you're not coming out desperate, but it's like an energy that you have. It's the way you're carrying yourself that the other person can actually sense. They can sense it even through Zoom, like you can sense it. And that kind of put him off, right? And he told me afterwards, he told me via text after I recorded yesterday's video, told me via text the following day that he just didn't feel comfortable putting all that money up front, the 10K up front, especially not having done the procedure. But the thing is that I noticed that he was being all strange on the call towards the end, and I didn't call it out. That's the thing, what I was saying before at the beginning of the video, I didn't call it out, right? And I could have said, hey man, listen, I completely get it. This is you saw an ad on Instagram, you talked to a person 15 minutes, and now we're on the phone for 45 minutes. And, I'm asking you for 10K. I understand how this could be like a weird situation for you. But man, we've been around for 10 years. We have 5 brick and mortar locations all across the United States. We're not going anywhere. There are reviews or testimonials. You could see our website. You could see all the work that we do. We're not going anywhere, right? And worst case scenario, if for some reason you want to back out, I don't think that you will. It sounds like you're very forward leaning. Then you can just, refund your money before the procedure. I could have said something like that, right? But I didn't. I was just like, I was looking at him kind of acting weird, like, oh, my credit card, it's actually in my wallet, which is in my car. And I was like, this doesn't seem right. That's weird, right? But I didn't say anything. I wasn't like maybe like awake, and I was too caught up in the closure frame, like the collecting money frame, which is not even like a real frame. It should be more smooth, right? When you get to the close, it should be so natural. The close should be so natural that it feels like it's just part of the process. There's no like anticipation of the price. It's just like it is what it is, right? And that's typically how I am. But for some reason, in that particular instance, when we got that close, and he behaved that way, I didn't call it out, and I didn't kind of like put his mind at ease. I said a couple of things, but it was, I think I said them to pay lip service to what typically is, you say in that situation, hoping that he would just say, "Oh, okay," but it wasn't really like authentic in the moment, and so I lost him. For now, he said that he is still interested and he still wants to do it. But we'll see what happens. I'll keep you updated with that one. But everybody makes mistakes, right? So it's completely normal. It's fine. Just keep with your process, right? Make sure that you're getting the feedback, right? You're reflecting. This is a big one. You have to reflect, and also it's not just practice makes perfect. You have to practice and you have to get feedback. So you have to get feedback on your own performance, either from somebody else, or you watch your own calls if they're recorded. If they're not recorded, and if you're doing actual meetings, then what you need to do after every single meeting, you have to write down what you did, right? Make a note of it. Record a memo. I record a lot of memos. And that way you can give feedback to yourself in real time, and that way you can practice further, especially if there's nobody there watching you. So yeah, those are a couple of points that I wanted to mention. There's a whole like midsection there about like me and my background and whatever. So yeah, I don't know if that was helpful. Hopefully it was. Covered a couple of things there. And yeah, I'll end it there. And